Hey, what's up makers? April Dunnam here. I've been watching the questions and comments and I've got a lot of questions about how can you patch and save multi-select, lookup, and person columns in SharePoint. So I thought this would make a great quick tip video. I'm going to walk you through how you can take a SharePoint people picker field that allows multiple values and a SharePoint lookup field that allows multiple values and patch that back to your SharePoint list. I'll also show how you can take those values and surface them up in a gallery. But first, here's the intro. To start out, let's take a look at our SharePoint list. So what I did is I've went in and I've added a people picker field called assign to. And if we look at the settings, I've selected the option to allow multiple selections. And I've also added a lookup column. And this is pointing to a reference list that I have called task types and pulling in the title. And on that, I also have allow multiple values selected. So what I'm going to show is how we can properly patch back to SharePoint a new or existing item into this list that contains these multiple values. Now, if we go back to PowerApps, you'll see that I have a screen here and I have two combo boxes. I have one to demonstrate the people picker and another combo box to demonstrate the task lookup field. For the people picker, I'm actually utilizing the Office 365 users connector, and I'm pulling in all the users that we have. So if we look at the items property of the combo box, I'm just calling Office 365 users dot search user and getting the value from that. You could add additional filters if you need to specify different users based off of a search term as well. For the lookup combo box, I'm just pointing its items property to that task types list, which I've added into my app as a data source. On the properties of each of these combo boxes, I've made sure to allow multiple selections on the combo box itself. You might have tried to patch these just using the regular way of patching. Since these are multi-select fields, that isn't going to work, so we have to do an extra step here. If we expand out this button I have that's going to initiate the patch and look at its onSelect, you'll see what we're going to need to do here. Since we're working with multi-select fields here, we have this combo box which allows multiple values. That means the data that we stored is going to be stored in a table with multiple items. So what we need to do is loop through that table and add that into a collection, which will have the appropriate format that SharePoint expects for us to patch with these different field types. The way that we loop through a collection of items is with the ForAll function. So you can see that's what I'm doing here. Within the ForAll, the first thing that we need to do is give it a source that we want to loop through. So for that case, the first thing I'm doing is with the people picker. So that's my combo box CB people. If you do a dot, there's a property called selected items, and that's going to get all the items that you've selected in that combo box. Within this ForAll, after we pointed it to a source, this is where I want to go and output this to a collection. We do that with the collect function, and I'm going to save this to a collection called call people to patch. Now this is where we have to take the data from the people picker combo box and put it in the format that SharePoint expects for us to patch it properly. So that's what we're seeing here in these brackets. We need to pass in information like the OData type, the claims information, department, email, display name, and all of that. So we're taking the values and formatting it correctly, and we're using a function called ThisRecord. Since we're inside of ForAll, we can use the ThisRecord shortcut to get the current record information, and then if we do a dot, we can get the individual properties. So it knows the context of what you're calling, which in this case is the Office 365 users connector. So when we do a dot after this, it's going to surface up all the properties here that we have available to us. So for the claims, obviously we want the mail, so we would do a dot and select that, and we would map the display name in the email as well. We can use this same method for the multiple select lookup columns. I have that in another combo box called CB task. So I'll use the ForAll again, point it to the task combo box's selected items, use my collect function again to add this to another collection called task to patch. And the format that SharePoint expects for this is slightly different. You just need to pass it in an ID and a value. So I'll put in brackets here and I'll use the ThisRecord function again so I can get the reference of the current object within this ForAll. And I want to get the ID and map that to the ID field and the title and map that to the value. Now that we have both of those in a collection and formatted the correct way, now we can actually do our patch. But we're going to take our patch, point it to our data source, choose there if this is a new or existing, and I'll just hard code the title for now. And then you see this is the assign to field, which is that multi-select people picker. And we're just going to point that to the collection we just created above. And then for the task lookup field, we'll do the same thing and point that to the collection we just created above. And below, I'm just refreshing our data source so that we can display that in the gallery. And finally, you want to make sure that you're clearing the collection after you patch, because if you're going to go back in and add more items, you don't want to have that data from the collection from the previous record in there. So that's what we're doing here with the clear collect. We're going to point that to our collections, and we're going to set those collection values to blank so that they're empty and ready for the next submission. That's really all there is to it. So let's walk through and see if this works. So let me clear these out. So I'll go into the people picker and I'll select 2 different options. And same thing for the task. Let's select a few here. I'll go ahead and do 3 for that one. So now if I click our patch, that will go out, take the values, and you see it's almost instantaneous that it populated a result here. And if we go to our data source, we'll just confirm that the information is submitted correctly. So you see here's the test item. It has both the assign tos and all 3 task lookup options. The next thing you might be wondering is, how can I get these multi-select lookup fields to show properly in a gallery? Because you'll notice I actually have 2 labels in this gallery. One that's pointing directly to my assign to and display name, but you might notice we're getting an error because this expects a text value, and what's returned is actually a table data type since it is multiple values. And that's the same thing here for our lookup field. So one way that we can do this is, if I uncomment this formula out, is we can use the concat function to get this table of items and comma separate those out into a string so that it will display appropriately in our gallery. So that's what I've done here. So if you type in concat, you'll first give it a table of values to look through. So for this, since we're in the gallery, we're going to use this item dot, and I'm getting my people picker field, and then I'm getting the display name. So we give the concat that table, and then we have to tell it the expression, well, what data do you want to pull in from that table? So once it has the reference of the assign to, I'm telling it I want to display the display name of the assign to object. And then finally you tell it, well, what's your separator? So this could be whatever you want. It could be a comma, it could be a space, semicolon. So in my case, I put a comma, and that's going to take all the values that you have in there, separate that out with a comma into a string so that it displays nicely here in your gallery. And we can do the exact same thing on our lookup field. This one's just slightly different. Since this is a lookup, we just have 2 properties. We have an ID and a value. So we're going to take the value to get the actual text information and separate that out with a comma as well. And now that displays nicely here within my gallery. That's all there is to it, to patch these multi-select field types and display them within a gallery. I hope you found this quick tip helpful. If you did, please like, subscribe, share, and I'll catch you in the next video.